So the second encounter in Highmaul is going to be the Butcher. He's basically just a patchwork style fight. The boss really just stands in one spot for the whole fight, so there's nothing much to that.
However, the positioning comes from group organization in your raid. You'll need to set up your group into small group clusters. The group size will depend on your raid size, but essentially you're going to want to have your range spread out and your melee divided into 2 even groups.
So more on that in a bit, but the abilities the boss will use is, the first one anyway, is the Cleaver, and this is the tank debuff, and it'll deal a bunch of damage and bleeds the target for 30 seconds. Tanks will need to swap after this, but the bleed can be avoided if the attack misses, so through using mitigation and whatnot.
His second ability, Heavy-Handed, will cause the boss's auto attacks to hit a second target within 5 yards of the tank. If there's no one within 5 yards, then the tank gets 2 auto attacks. So the other tank will need to sit next to the main tank in order to soak these second auto attacks.
The Tenderizer is the next ability, and this will also be used on the tank. It is another tank swap ability. This causes the target to take a ton of damage and get a 40-second stacking debuff that will cause the target to take increased damage from successive Tenderizers. So yeah, you'll also need to swap on that one.
The boss will use Cleave about every 5 seconds, and it targets the largest clump of players and hits them for a large amount of damage, but this damage is split evenly amongst everyone that it hits. It applies a debuff called Gushing Wounds. This debuff is a bleed that lasts for 15 seconds, but if the debuff reaches 5 stacks, you're killed outright. So tanks need to really stay away from these group clusters so they don't get hit with the stacking debuff. Also, you need to designate one player in each of the 2 groups that will move in and out of the group when the debuff reaches 4 stacks. When one group reaches 4 stacks of the debuff, then someone in that group moves away, and someone from the other group walks in to his group to make this group the largest cluster. So that effectively makes it the boss target that group.
Anyway, the next ability is Bound and Cleave, which will be used when the boss reaches 100 energy, and it knocks everyone back, and then charges the largest cluster of players, and which seems to always be ranged, by the way, and then he uses Cleave on them. When this is going down, all the range need to quickly stack together in order to split the damage, or otherwise the sore loser who gets hit by it is literally just going to be toasted.
Keeping with the character theme, the Butcher will occasionally toss out a meat hook, which simply pulls the tank back to the boss.
Although, like, I've never actually, this is all just the dungeon journal telling me this. I didn't see that used once during the fight. Maybe it's because the tank doesn't really go anywhere because the boss doesn't move. But once you get the boss down to 30% of his health, he's going to Frenzy and deal 10% more damage and increasing his attack speed by 30%. And he'll now regenerate his energy twice as fast.
Fun little part for the DPS. There's no ads in this fight, so feel free to tunnel the boss to your heart's content.
Wait, isn't that every boss?
Well, yeah, but I mean, they can't yell at me for this one.
So, just to recap, because it's really not that complex of a fight. Tanks, you're swapping when the damage from the Cleaver and the Tenderizer gets a little bit too high. Depending on your gear, this might be after 1 hit, which most likely will be, if you just want to be safe. But as of right now, I don't think you'll be able to take 2 hits.
The off tank needs to always be within 5 yards of the main tank to soak the heavy-handed auto attack, so the tank doesn't take 2 or a melee DPS take a hit.
As previously mentioned, tanks also need to stay away from the group clusters just to not accidentally get Cleave stacks on them.
For healers, remember the boss will be putting out increased damage when he frenzies at 30% health, so plan to have a
few CDs, Trank, whatever. I mean,
yeah.
Healing Totem, all the good fun stuff. The tanks will be taking a lot of damage from the Tenderizer and the Cleaver, so you're going to have to be watching them and keeping them all hotted up and bubbled depending on what you are. But not to mention, they'll actually both be taking damage because of heavy-handed, so you can't just totally ignore one.
The damage is going out on everyone hit by the Cleave, so AoE healers will definitely be strong in this fight.
Yeah, keeping the Druid Mushroom down and Healing Rain and whatnot, it gets a little bit tougher as the stacks get higher, but it's obviously manageable and doable. DPS, you just need to smack the boss really hard. It's a lot of fun.
More dots.
Go patchwork fights.
Just general rules. Everyone has to stay in their group clusters, and the assigned players need to move in and out when their group hits 4 stacks. This is a mechanic that if you don't get it right, you'll obviously die. Mm-hmm. But once you get it right, it's a pretty easy thing to figure out.
It's not very complicated. It's, past grade 6 math, I think you can do it. The range group just needs to be stacked. They can really just be stacked for the entire fight. I had said earlier that, spread out and come together, but just stack. The boss will enrage after 5 minutes, so it doesn't really matter when you lost. Just do it right at the beginning just to get it out of the way. Or when he frenzies if you're having trouble with that part. But yeah, there is a bit of a, tight range timer, so DPS needs to be on point. That's all you need to know to really cut this boss up, guys. Good luck, adventurers.